Okay, guys, how you going?
Good, thanks.
Good, thanks, Pato.
Good, Pato.
Good. So we've got Ben Nicholls, Tim Kacprzak, and Matt Dube. And yeah, I mean, it's been an awesome year. And I've got obviously this is the end of year review show, but I've got a few questions for you guys before we get started. So just starting with you, Ben, you lead into Bigs. You were looking pretty good. You won that 200 miler in Queensland, and then you won the Surf Coast Century mixed pairs race, and then things took a bit of a U-turn. So what happened?
Um, yeah, so I think Unreasonable, which was the 200 miler, that might have been 5.5 weeks out, and then recovered pretty good from that. Ran a 100k race where I did 50 and Camille did 50, and we won that. I definitely had a bit of fatigue in that one, but still got through it pretty good. And then, so I was pretty pumped, and then I gave myself a week to recover and thought, right, I'm going to do a big week. And the plan was to do like a 180 kilometre week that week. At the same time, I was doing a heap of sheep work and work and doing my day job as well, which is a 12-hour shift. So I was getting home in the morning. I was on night shift and trimming some sheep's feet. And I was just trying to get through sort of 10 to 20 a morning before I went to bed. And there were only about 60. So it was only a few days' work, well, a few mornings' work. Anyway, I got down to the second last sheep. You just flip the sheep over and you sit it on its bum, and you give it a pedicure, basically. And they were young, strong sheep, and this sheep was fighting really hard, and I was having trouble holding it, and it kicked up really high, and I pushed down to sort of stop myself from getting kicked in the face. And as I have done that, I've managed to hit myself in the left knee with the trimmers that I was holding in my right hand. And they're basically just like sort of heavy duty scissors, really. And it just sort of went into my knee, and instantly sort of knew, geez, I've hurt that. My 180 kilometre week might be in jeopardy here. But that's sort of at first. That's all I thought I'd done, was maybe I wasn't going to be able to get my big week done. So I finished that sheep and then the last sheep, and walked down to the house, and I was limping pretty bad, and I wasn't in a great mood. I hadn't slept. And I walked into the house and sort of didn't say anything to anybody, and I just walked into the first aid kit, and I taped it up, and it was the dressing that I put on it was soaked within a minute, and it was bleeding pretty heavily. And then Camille came and helped me. Camille's a nurse, and so we butterfly taped it up, or steri stripped it up, and then within a couple of hours, I think because we sealed it up so well, it kept bleeding inside, and it filled the joint up with fluid, and it became excruciatingly painful to the point where I thought maybe I'd actually broken the kneecap. I went to hospital, and it wasn't broken, luckily. But long story short, a few days later, I was in the emergency department. I was told I needed surgery, and that there was no way I was running an ultra marathon in 3 weeks. And I just sort of didn't. This isn't good advice for any young people listening at home. I just didn't really think that they had their finger on it quite right. And I thought I can get this right in 3 weeks. And I'm not sure I could say that I did, but we got running again, and managed 50 hours at Bigs, but it was very painful 50 hours, and it was a very difficult 3 weeks. It was a lot of, it was tricky, but sort of pulled it off.
Yeah, bloody hell. Yeah, I didn't realise you did it shearing a sheep, but apparently, did I hear right that two different surgeons actually, or two different doctors told you needed surgery?
Yeah, basically. Well, there were three on that particular day. There were three, and it didn't look good at all. Like there was coloration down my calf and up my quad, and it did look infected, but I just didn't feel infected. Like there were no glands raised, and it had only been a couple of days, and knowing myself, I don't get infected easily. It's certainly not that quickly.
Yeah.
And I think it was more blood and fluid. And they aspirated it, which means they basically stick a big needle in there, which is horrible, and pull the fluid out to see what the fluid is. And all they got was blood. They were expecting to get a syringe full of pus, and all they got was blood. So they actually sent that off to get tested, but before the test results arrived, they were pushing me to get surgery, and I said, I want to wait for the test results. And then the test results came back with only a minor infection, so not what they were anticipating. So just on the antibiotics and anti-inflammatories, and limped for a few weeks.
And being only 3 weeks from Biggs, you obviously would have had your plane tickets, all your accommodation, and everything totally planned. So it would have been a big call to have called it off.
Yeah, well, purely by coincidence, I'd only booked half the flight, so I booked the flights through to Honolulu, at the time it was about $2,000 cheaper to fly to Hawaii and then onto the mainland. So I think it was only the day before I booked the flights to Honolulu, and I hadn't yet booked the flights onwards to Nashville. So we held off on that, obviously, and I checked the prices pretty much every day. They weren't really changing at all at that point. I think it was kind of locked in. I think flying from the mainland to Hawaii is a common route. So there's a lot of flights. And then, so Tim had not yet made the list, and I messaged him pretty much straight away. I think it was the day after that I heard it, and said, look, there's a possibility I'm not going and you'll be going. And I think that was probably the biggest driver to not locking it in, was being really worried that I'd go and then run for 5 hours, blow my knee out while Tim's sitting at home watching me.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing playing on my mind.
Yeah. I've just got a quick question, Ben. Sort of in case people, the viewers or the people listening sort of don't underestimate sort of the actual seriousness of your injury. Is it worth saying that if it wasn't a dream race and an international race, if this race was in Australia, would you have pulled the pin and not competed?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I've been paying for it ever since. It's been, what has it been, like 6 or 8 weeks or something like that, and I'm still dealing with the aftermath. So nearly through it. Back running, and I ran 15 Ks yesterday and aiming to run 80 or 90 this week. So definitely back running, but still dealing with a few issues. No way I would have put my body through that or risked, this much time for a domestic race. Yeah.
And so Tim, you were on the reserve list, and during this time, and obviously you didn't want to make it to Biggs because Ben pulled out because of this. But when did you actually know that you had made it to Biggs?
You're definitely right. I didn't want. I actually felt I could feel that Ben felt bad. That he's like, oh, I'm your chance to get there. And then I kind of felt bad. I'm like, I don't want you to be my chance to get there. So I was like, oh, God damn, I hope someone else pulls out so that it's so it's all okay. Yeah. But yeah, I found out, I found out on the Wednesday before. So it was like 10 days before the event. I had a message from Laz saying that it looks like a couple of guys aren't going to be able to make it due to visa issues, and there's a spot there if you want it. So I pretty much found out on Wednesday, and I flew out on Sunday. So I just kind of scamper around, try to get flights, book some accommodation,
one of my good mates at work, Joel, we both had kind of already planned with work and said that we're going. So everything was kind of planned around we're actually going. And so it wasn't too difficult, but work were kind of going, are you guys going to be here on Monday? And we're like, oh, just hold on for a bit longer, And then, I got the call and we were able to kind of, make it.
Good job.
Yeah, it wasn't, it wasn't easy, but yeah. And it was a shame because like I wanted to take my family over initially. If I have qualified, like everyone else 3 months prior, it would have been a little bit easier. But I mean, I still trained and everything like that, like I was going. But I think I even said that to you on the previous podcast. I was going to continue to train like I was going. So yeah.
And you did amazingly well. Like you did 60 yards, you broke the Victorian record, you did a PB. But I haven't actually asked you, like, what actually, like, were you toiling away for a long time till you pulled out, or was it sudden? Like, what actually happened when you?
Nah, it was, for me, it was pretty sudden. I got into the 50s pretty easily. I was running through the nights really well. Like my body held up really, really well. Right up until the end, it was feeling great. I reckon maybe the last 4 or 5 hours, I was having some tummy issues. So I'd kind of switched back to just liquid nutrition, and that was working okay. And then I don't know, it's almost like I think when I get tired, I start to get a little irrational in my thinking, and I'm coming in and I've got like 4 or 5 minutes, but I feel like I've got 4 or 5 seconds, and I'm like, no, this is all over. This is happening. This is the moment I'm going to quit, and everyone's like, just chill out. Just, you've got plenty of time. Like I even look back at my times now and I'm like, what was I thinking? And then I kind of got to a point, and like I've had a lot of thoughts about it, and it's hard because when you kind of pull the pin and you felt like the body still felt good, you kind of feel like you ripped yourself off. But I almost felt like I'd put so much effort into the preparation to get there and so much energy towards that, and I got there and I was like, oh my god, now that I'm here, I want to make sure I'm competitive, or at least I seem to be competitive. And then I think I got myself to a point that I'm like, I think I'm there. I think I got what I wanted, and that was to make it there and be competitive. And 60 was around about that mark. Whereas if I had have gone into it and gone, I want to win, then I probably would have kicked on, because the next day I was joking with Ben. I was jogging down the road, and I'm like, "You're an idiot. Why did you pull out?" Like, so I'd almost lost my why. I think that's the reason. That's what it kind of came down to. But it's easy to say when you're sitting here and you've had 10 hours sleep and everything's okay and you're not stressed and you haven't been running for 60 hours. It's easy to say that, but in that moment, I think that's the one thing I've got to work on is make sure that I've got a better why. And I think I'm on top of it, because what I've seen of others at Bigs was like everyone kind of stopped for the same reason, but they pushed a little bit further.
Yeah.
I find it amazing with everyone that I talk to, with racing backyards, just how often you find that fulfillment being the enemy of the backyard racer. It can kill you every time, being satisfied.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, I think everyone's going to be, proud of the effort that I've put in, and I'm proud of the effort that I've put in. And it's like, but it's not the win. It's not, and it's sometimes maybe that's the lesson in it all. For me, it was getting to that moment and realizing that you need now, if you're going to move on to bigger and better things, that you're going to have to find a better reason why. And I'm okay with that. Like I love, finding out, about myself and being able to learn from the whole actual experience. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is great. I've got something to work on. Had I won, I would have been like, I've arrived. and now it's like, now I've got nothing to work on. And it's like, it's a double-edged sword. But anyway, so that was pretty much why, I kind of, I pulled the pin.
Mm. Well, look, I mean, 60 is still. I mean, 60 is an awesome result, and I mean, when you're sitting back and watching it, 60 hours, like that's like it
A
felt like
big number.
it's a big number. Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, yeah. It did look. It didn't feel like that long, but yeah, it's But yeah, you're almost in a bubble every time you go into these events. You're away from technology, you're away from people, you're just in this bubble, and it was actually really nice. We actually stayed at the race site right until the end, and still being in that bubble was pretty cool because the days they went pretty quick because normally, you go home and everyone's still running 2 or 3 days later and you've lived a whole nother life outside of the race, but to actually still have been there and watched everyone kind of push through and chanting everyone in. And it was just, the atmosphere was just amazing, especially from about 72 hours to about 90 hours. So that fourth day, it was pretty cool because everyone that had kind of had a bit of a sleep had come back and everyone was kind of cheering everyone else on.
Yeah. I think you've also got to put some more perspective on it as well, Tim, with what you achieved. It was only a few years ago, I think, 2019, 60 loops wins Big's backyard. So, of course the sport has evolved very quickly, but it was only a few years ago where that was a world leading time.
Oh yeah.
So Matt, you went back to back at GV this year at Shepparton, and I mean I was there with you, and I mean you looked so strong. So you must be looking forward to testing yourself against some races that are going to be going to go a bit deeper this year.
Look, definitely. I think it's sort of my time this year to take the next step because it's been almost 2 years now since I pulled out when I wasn't injured. I'm sort of taking a bit of a swipe at the SAT champs because you guys know I went into it a bit injured and a bit exhausted. But the last time that I was really fit for a race and pulled out of a backyard was when I was racing all of you guys. It's when you won, Ben, obviously, at MVP in early 2022. And to be honest, I think I'm a lot better runner now than I was then. 2 years of backyard education. You guys know I'm a real backyard enthusiast. I'm not afraid to say that. So I've spent a lot of time training, preparing, and learning from everyone that I've watched in backyard races, and so I think I'm a better backyard racer than maybe my PB suggests. And obviously at Miram Werner, I'll get to put my money where my mouth is, and I'll get an opportunity to really race with some really good runners. Obviously, you guys first and foremost, because GV, I love both years at GV, particularly the second year when I really felt strong as a runner. But Miram Werner will absolutely be a massive step up and a big step up in competition. So I'm just looking forward to embracing that competition and going into an event, really fit and ready to really find my limit.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Miram Werner, it's going to be awesome. Have you thought about if you're going to go for the 3-piece at GV next year?
It's always on my mind, but look, I haven't told Robbie, the race director, this, so he's probably going to find out on this podcast. But look, I don't think so. I've committed to another Victorian backyard ultra in June, the Wild Dog Backyard Ultra, which is a pretty local race for me that I already committed to, and I don't know if I'm prepared, and I don't know if my family are prepared for me to do 3 backyards in one year. Sorry. For me personally, I sort of just think maybe 2 might be my limit. I don't know if I want to put 3 races together. If if something happens at Wild Dog and I don't get up and I get injured or I don't have a great race, then obviously GB will always be there for me. But at this stage, I really am just sort of focusing on Miram Wernet, number one, and then Wild Dog in June. And then we'll see what happens after that.
What are you going to do if you win the silver ticket at Miram Wernet then?
Well, if I win the silver ticket at Miram Wernet, it looks like I'm going.
That's three.
It looks like I'm doing a third race. But I'm a little bit, non-committal or anything like that, purely just because I've run 3 backyards in a year before, and it's when I got injured. And I really don't want that to happen again, especially when I've had a really good race in September and I'm really fit and really confident. I want to do whatever I can not to have another setback.
Yeah. One of the things is that though the year you did the 3, the first 2 were all on concrete. MVP and Shepparton, they're all on concrete, whereas Miram Wernet and Wild Dog, I believe, are mainly on a softer surface. So that's probably a good thing.
That is what you're saying is absolutely true, Pato. That year that I did 3, the first 2 were hard courses. So maybe there's something in that. Maybe that's why my body didn't hold up as well as I wanted it to. But geez, what do we know?
So look, I mean, I asked you guys to come on so we could talk about the year that was and stuff like that, and I've given you a few categories. So for the Backyard Ultra 2023, I thought we'd just start from the top and go runner of 2023. Ben, did you want to tell us your thoughts?
I've kind of got 2 lists. I've got an international list and a domestic list. So,
cool.
It's hard to go past the world champion in any sport. You can't really go past Harvey Lewis as being runner of the year, new world record, won the world championships. So I think that's the obvious choice. Definitely. That's a long way, by the way. 8 hours. I was there. It's incredible. Domestically, I've got Phil, which is probably not a huge surprise, but I got Phil for doing 200-hour plus runs in a year, and I think he actually did them within 5 months. So, as far as I know, he's the only person in the world that's managed to do that. I think he's one of only 2 that have done 100 twice. They're my 2.
Yeah, I think that I think one runner doing 200s in one calendar year is going to be very, very rare. I don't know if we'll see that for a while.
Yeah, I think that's a massive achievement. It's probably overlooked by a few people.
Yeah. What about you, Tim?
Yeah, well, I kind of agree with Ben, with Harvey. Like, that was an amazing effort. But I had Phil as my runner of the year purely because, like you said, 200-hour races, 100 hour races in a 5-month period. It's crazy to think that he was able to do that. And like, one of them he won, and one of them obviously he didn't. But the one at Dead Cow Gully, he could have kept on going for another 24 hours. The way he looked, he looked pretty amazing. And even like, I got to crew him a little bit at the end of Biggs, and the way he pushed, and so he went out on an injury in the end. I know I've been saying, like, you can't go past the world champion. You can't, but just purely on how many yards he actually did over a whole year, because he actually won Hurdies earlier on in the year as well. So I think it was like 58 hours there as well. So I mean, purely on that, I had Phil, and Harvey was definitely up there as well.
I can help you out there, Tim. I got some stats here. Phil won 6 races, 1 second, and 5th at Biggs He won backyards, track ultras, and trail races. So I mean, that's
There you go, and
pretty
that's why I had Phil Gore as my backyard runner of the year.
When you put his 2023 running record next to Harvey's, he's out in front.
Yeah, but you can't get past the world record and the world champion as well. So that's there. So it's really tricky. It is a tricky one.
Yeah.
He would have made it. It would have been a lot easier, honestly. If Phil had just won, but I mean, but yeah, nah. So yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, look, I don't think there's much to add, to be honest. I think from a domestic standpoint, we're all obviously Phil fans. I'm very much sort of with Ben that, Biggs is the flagship of the backyard ultra. Regardless of if you've been beat earlier in the year, if you win Biggs, you're the runner of the year. That I can't get past that, to be honest. But geez, with Phil, and look, you guys were there, Tim and Dave, and I watched it, pretty closely online. That Dead Cow Gully Masters race that Phil ran, Phil won't mind me saying this, but when I saw that race end, I never ever in my mind thought that Phil wasn't going to win the World Championship. I didn't for 1 second think that he wasn't going to win big. And I would have put my house on it and I would have lost it. And the fact that how superior he looked at the time against Harvey and Sam Harvey, I just would have backed him all the way. Phil suffered his first loss in almost 3 years or something like that. But I think Phil would still say that this was his best year in running probably ever. We'll have to ask him that sometime.
I think there's a lot to be said for travelling as well. Harvey Lewis had to travel to Dead Cow Gully and fight the jet lag and everything else. And so I think that although that 90 was incredible, I don't think that he proved that he had more. It's just that traveling. When we went to Biggs, it took me 4 or 5 days before I felt normal. And then you hit the event, and it can be masked with all the excitement and all that, your fatigue and your jet lag. It's very easy to mask it with that. But yeah, and Phil would have been in the same boat, having to travel over to Tennessee. So there's a lot to be said for that. I think what runners might do in the future, if they got to travel to Biggs or something like that, they might go a couple of weeks earlier just to make sure that because you could tell that was a little bit of I think that was a little bit of a difference. Not taking away anything from Harvey Lewis, but he did also have to travel to Dead Cow Gully. So I think that props to the guys that if you can travel and put in an amazing performance like that anyway. But yeah, I think that it is a factor.
Yeah, 100%. And also the thing with travelling from Perth, it's actually the furthest distance that anyone travelled from to get to Biggs.
Yeah, right. That's a good start.
For my runner of 2023, I've given an honourable mention to Margie Hadley because she won 2 backyard ultras, Birdies and Hysterical, and then 2 weeks after she won Hysterical, she won Coast to Cozzy. So she's a bloody good runner, and I'm glad she's going to be in the Australian team at the Sat Champs.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And yeah, look, Phil Gore's my runner of the year. He started in beast mode, winning Hurdies. He broke the world record at the Masters, and then 3 months later broke 100 again at Biggs. And like I said, I don't think we'll see anyone break 100 twice in a calendar year very often. And I think for me, that makes him my runner of the year.
Well said.
Yeah. But one of the reasons why I left Harvey Lewis out of my runner of the year is because I've got a category single best performance of the year. So, Ben, who did you have down? What do you have down for that?
I've got Ihor Veris. I think that's how you pronounce his last name. Who was the assist at Biggs? 107, and I think at 100, I thought there was no way this guy's going to lose.
Yeah.
It was him and Bartos, the Polish guy, running together, and they just looked so solid. And then Bartos pulled out, and you just saw Ihor just sort of, his mind took over a little bit. And but that was his third backyard. He's run 39, 67, and 107. So a 40-hour PB, assist at the World Champs. Yeah. Really, I think came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody would have picked him to be the assist. So that's my performance of the year. Got to mention Jen Rosso, who got the assist at Capital in 74, which I believe is a women's female world record.
Yep.
And domestically, I've gone the same as you, Pat. I've gone Margie for winning Coast to Cozzy 2 weeks after winning a backyard. What did she run? 40 hours?
Oh, yeah, 40. She won with 40.
Historic. Yeah, so 40-hour run 2 weeks later doing a 32-hour run and winning both of them. So,
yeah, she's a gun. She's so fun to run with as well. She's really good to talk to out there. And, like I said, she was in the Sat Champs team last year, but she's an awesome member of that team, which you guys probably realised when you ran with her last time.
Yeah. Let's stop talking about Margie because she's in my predictions for 2024. Okay. So still my prediction.
Tim, what your single best performance of 2023?
So I kind of had looked at it a little bit differently. I looked at it as a fan of Backyard Ultra, and watching the Suffolk Backyard Ultra was one of the best experiences that I had watching from home. The gentleman that commentated that, like, he had me hooked and had me like tuning in every single hour going, what's going on? Like, it was just epic. And watching Oriel and Henrik, that's kind of, I suppose that's my single best performance. Those two together at the end of that race was just amazing. Like at lap 78, Oriel ran like 59.35. Right, just got in. I'm like, yep, he's done. There is no way that he's going to be able to keep going. These guys are in the high, like 50s for ages. Like, I think, so at like 72, Oriel was at like 55. So for 10 hours, they were up in the high 50s, and they were just coming in. And the guy commentating, it's like, had you on the edge of your seat. Like, he'd see him come around the corner, and he's like, oh, here he comes. And you're like, come on, get there. It was like watching a horse race, but it was the most horse race ever, right? And I'm just there. I'm like, come on, he's got this. And I'm like, no, Oriel's gone. And then you were hearing things about Oriel falling asleep, and John Stocker running past him and waking him up off a bench. And I'm like, oh, man, that's incredible. And he was still getting in. And then Henrik looked super strong. And I got to run with Henrik for a bit at Biggs as well. He was a super nice guy. And it was just watching that race unfold, and then Oriel winning on 82 in the end was just, for me, that was like the single best performance of the year. But in saying that, watching Oriel run at Biggs was pretty amazing as well. I heard a rumor that his crew, by accident, stuffed up his dosing of his liquid nutrition for the first 24 hours. It was like 1 to 10. It was like 10% of what they were supposed to be mixing, and he couldn't understand why he had no energy. It's because they were mixing 10% instead of 100% of whatever like his liquid nutrition was, and he just kept on going, and he ended up with, I think, 89 or something like that at Biggs. So that was, but that Suffolk Backyard Ultra was super cool. It was awesome to watch from home.
Yeah, I have to second that. You know, I've watched a lot of documentaries on Backyard Ultras, and that's some of the best footage out there. It's pretty good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And What about you, Matt?
Yeah, oh, look, mine's very simple. I can't go past Biggs, to be honest. Biggs is the shining light of the backyard world, and Harvey sort of proved, he's won it twice now. Like the reality is, and until someone beats him at Biggs, he's the backyard king. So, Phil Harvey is the performance of the year for me.
Yeah. I've actually written a few down. I've got Phil Gore at the Masters breaking the world record. John Bain, I've got to say, John Bain at the Masters. A lot of people would have missed him unless you were there. So, Tim, you'd remember, like, he did 51 yards.
Yep.
He's like 58 or 59 years old, and there's no one in the world older than him that did more yards than him.
Yeah.
And then that brings me to Jen Russo. She's only 1 year younger than John Bain, and she, like Ben said, she ran 74 yards at Capital, breaking the female world record. Sam Harvey at the Masters said he'd break 100, and he did, smashing his previous best by over 50 yards.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's incredible.
Yeah. Also, you probably noticed at Birdie's, Chris Martin, between his 32 yards, he was painting an art.
That was epic.
Yeah. So, which it was pretty much almost finished after the 32 yards, and he auctioned it off for charity. And like you guys know, his artwork is amazing. And what he did in between those 32 yards, it looked like a photo. It was that amazing. Ehor really announced himself on the main stage with that record performance as the assist. He's only in his 20s as well, so he's one of those young guns like Sam Harvey who are going to be around for a while. Who knows what they're going to do. And performance of the year, Harvey Lewis at Biggs. If there was a rating system measuring backyard ultra performances, then it's impossible anything would rate higher than that run at Biggs.
Yeah, I agree. Like Harvey's run was, and he was, you know what, being there, he was nowhere to be seen for the first 2 or 3 days. Like he was down the back, just chilling out, having a good time. And then he popped up when he needed to, and took it out, which was it was a super impressive performance.
Yeah. Race of the year. What have you got, Ben?
Well, this is going to sound a bit boring, isn't it? But for me, it was Biggs, but there's probably no surprises there. It was a unexpected result, even though Harvey's been former world record holder and was always going to be up there. But it wasn't just Harvey; it was the top 10 that were there and the distance that they did. And, I guess being there for me it was cool, and it was incredible to see so many people pushing themselves. If you want to see, if you're one of those people that are at home asking how do people do this, I'm not talking about 90 or 100, even just 40 or 50. How do they do it? It doesn't seem possible. And go to something like that and see how many people are literally on their last legs and swaying in the corral and knowing they're not going to win. They're in the 80s and the 90s. There's 30 people left. They know they're not going to win. They just keep getting up. So from that perspective, it was race of the year. In Australia, the Masters was pretty awesome to watch. I loved watching that. And the top 5 finishes all went to the World Championships, which I'd be surprised if there was too many other races where there were 5 people from one race at the World Champs. And Timmy's one of Timmy's many races where I think that was the first time in Australia where 4 people got over 50. So that were my 3.
That was funny. That hurties. I don't remember the last 3 of those loops. I was on another planet. It was pretty tough. for me, my backyard ultra race of the year was definitely Biggs. Like getting there, the atmosphere around the whole, site. Laz being there and being Laz is exactly what we all expected. He's yelling at people. He's yelling at people out the front of his place park, and he's getting upset because someone left some litter on the trail because it's his place, and it's like, yeah, of course you're going to get upset. But that man rang the bell for every single loop. He might have had a couple naps in that chair that I noticed that he was sitting there right near the bell, but he had his alarm set for 4 minutes to go. And, he yelled out happy time every single time we ran off. He rang that bell, and it was like, oh my God, how on earth are you doing this? Like we're struggling. We've been training. We're all athletes, and you're bringing that bell. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And like Ben said, you meet all these people that you've been following for such a long time, and they're like to me, they were like meeting LeBron James. It was like, oh my God, there's John Stocker, and there's Henrik, and there's all these people that you've had on the podcast as well, and they don't think anything of themselves. They're all just kind of quiet, and everyone's very humble, which was really, really awesome to see. That the whole they're the best runners in the community, assembling for the best race that you can have, and everyone was so humble, and so yeah, it was a really, really cool event, and yeah, definitely one that if anyone's looking at trying to be try and participate against the best, that's one thing that you should really strive for is Biggs, because yeah, it was an experience I'll never forget.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was captured so well on the live stream as well. Like, I mean, me and Matt were watching from home, and it was really well done. You've probably watched it back. It was awesome.
Yeah, I watched a couple of clips back here and there. I actually didn't know it was going to be like that. A few laps in, I was asking Joel, I'm like, oh, are they recording? And they're like, yeah, it's all full live streaming it and everything like that. And I'm like, oh, cool. I didn't think it was going to be like that. I didn't think that it was going to be so professionally done. Because obviously they could make some tweaks here and there, but what they were doing, those guys with the cameras, man, they were when I was crewing for Phil, they were right in your face trying to get all the goss, and I'm like, it's great for the viewing audience, but for us it was kind of tricky because you're kind of like, what do you reckon we should do, and who's running here, or who's dropped out, and all those things, and kind of didn't want to give away too much of your tactics, but it was definitely cool. And yeah, I flicked back through a couple of videos just to see when I pulled the pin and how I was looking and stuff like that, and yeah, the footage is awesome that they got.
Yeah. Matt, your race of the year or races of the year?
Yeah, look, I'll have to apologise to the international fans because I'm just going to stick domestically because that's basically all I know. But look, Ben touched on, everyone's touched on the Masters, and that really was a really good race. But I really, one that might come out of left field, I really enjoyed this year's Birdie's backyard. Mainly because it was the first year in a few years where Phil Gore wasn't racing, and the fact that Rob was already qualified for Biggs as well, it really, really opened up the field like it hasn't been for many years, back in the days when Michael Hooker was dominating the backyard scene. So to watch Birdies with a genuinely open field, I really followed that one with excitement, and it didn't disappoint with Margie taking it out. And obviously, yeah, I've already touched on it, but the Masters is obviously a high point for Australian backyard racing, getting international fields across.
Oh, that was a big race internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can't not talk about that.
Yeah. I've got race of the. I've got a couple or three. Clint Eastwood. Ryan Crawford and James Blanton running together as the final two for 22 hours to reach 60, and James Blanton qualifying for bigs in that race.
Yeah, that was big.
Yeah. And you probably thought, Tim, when he qualified, it was all over for you, did you? Or?
Yeah. I thought, Ryan, you dragged someone into bigs. Now I'm out, definitely. No, I think at that stage I was still a fair way down the list, but it didn't help my anxiety. No.
Yeah. I've got Suffolk Backyard Ultra as well. Great finish between Oriole and Hendrik Brewery, and the coverage by Stephen Cousins was excellent. The Masters, if anyone hasn't watched the doco on YouTube, you've got to watch it because it is so good. You starred on it as well, Tim, so it was pretty good.
Yeah. You're funny.
And bigs, definitely the best Backyard Ultra field assembled. 72 runners were left at 24 hours. 47 runners were left at 48, 23 at 72, and 6 runners broke 100. So, so well captured on the live stream, and an exciting finish. So definitely the race of the year for me. So with the next thing, backyard story of the year, I was kind of thinking like, what's happened during the year that could be turned into a movie kind of thing. What did you come up with, Ben?
Easy. This one was easy. This was Tim getting the bigs. Wouldn't that make an incredible movie?
Yeah.
You're funny.
I'm serious. I won't do this story any justice, so I won't try and tell it. But I can't even remember how many backyards you entered and how long you trained, how many 200-kilometre weeks you ran to just add an hour to your PB and then add another hour to your PB and then incredibly add, I think, 4 hours or something to your PB in the last one, still think you didn't have a chance, and then 10 days out to get the invite. That's a cool story.
Pretty incredible.
And, I think being involved in it, just through messages and talking to you on the phone, I was one of the first people in Australia to find out that Tim had made it, because I got up to go to work at 4 a.m. and I got up to go for a run before work, and I sitting down with my coffee and I checked Facebook, and there it was. Laz had literally put it up. It said posted 2 minutes ago, and I did a dance in the kitchen because it meant that I was going too, because I no longer had any pressure on me to pull out. But I was just genuinely so stoked for him. And
well, I actually woke up to that message. That was the first, I woke up in the morning and I grabbed my phone and I had a message from you, and all it said was, "Wake up, you're going to bigs." And I'm like, no way. So that was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool way to get it. So
it was a saga. It was such a saga for you to get there.
Oh, I know. I'm like, it was
every race was like a Rocky bout. You were on the ropes at the end of every race. So it was brilliant.
Yeah, it was a lot of there was a lot of lessons learned after every race. But every time I got it, it's funny. Every time I got into the 50s, I'm like, I've got this. I'm gonna get to 60, and then something catastrophic would happen at 54 or 55 or 51, and I'm like, oh, why? I'm pretty sure I've got this. And then I remember even at Dead Cow Gully at the Masters talking to Aaron and saying, we were at 48 hours and the sun was coming up. I'm like, I've got this. I've just got to run for 12 more hours, and I've got it. And then next minute something goes wrong or whatever. But it's nice of you to mention that, Ben. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping me entertained for a whole year.
I guess look, my story was more the story that Daniel that did the Masters doco told I thought that was you just said turn something into a movie. I think what Daniel did on his own and what he produced in that doco was just phenomenal. Like watching, and I didn't know it was going to be like that. I thought it was going to be more about Sam Harvey, Harvey Lewis, and Phil Gore, and then there'd be a little bit of me and Ollie, a little bit of Fiona and Akana and stuff like that. But the way he told it, where everyone got a 20-minute or 25 minutes of that doco to tell their little story. Like Fiona's story was amazing, getting into running after, her mum, to deal with the death of her mum. And Akana's this light-hearted young girl who, ran from the top of Australia to the bottom in 150 marathons in 150 days. And then you had me and Ollie with the father and son story. That was really cool. And then you had the elite guys, chasing a world record and breaking it. So it was like, there you go. If you want to see a story, there's your Backyard Ultra story. That doco was just amazing, and just the way it was captured, the cinematic way it was captured was just like incredible. And just, that's outback Australia kind of thing. Your farming land kind of stuff, and it captured what we do in Australia really well. And I think that doco will attract a lot of people going to Dead Cow Gully. Because I don't know if you've seen, I think today, Maury from Japan signed up, and I'm like, I think I really want to go. Like, it sounds like everyone's going to try and get, because I think Sam's going to be there as well. If Maury's there, I'm like, oh, how can I swing it? Because that doco just, was a perfect advertisement for Backyard Ultras in Australia. So, but yeah, the whole story captured by Daniel, and he did it on his own. Like it would have been so much recording, and he had to be there every time one of us pulled the pin. He had to be there as well. Like we were doing it in the middle of the night, and at all different kind of hours. But he captured that story really nicely.
Yeah. It is I love watching. It's I love the start. How Sam Harvey, it's around the 99 or 98, and Sam Harvey's getting carried into the house, and
it's not dramatic at all.
Yeah, it just grabs you. You can't watch that. Like I was talking with Tim Moffat, and he was saying if you just tell someone just watch the first 2 minutes, if you get someone just watch the first 2 minutes, that most of the time they'll just watch the whole thing because it just grabs you from the very start.
Yep.
What about you, Matt? Story of the year?
Yeah, I don't think we can beat sort of Tim's depiction of the Masters. And when we talk about making a movie, well, it's already been done. It's that good. It's pretty bloody good.
Yeah.
But I also think of Harvey Lewis and at Biggs. And I go back to the movie Rocky 3, where Rocky suffers an early defeat by Clubber Lang. Obviously, that's Phil Gore, and then brings him home to his home turf and wins. And that's not to say that Phil Gore was a villain in this, not by any stretch of the imagination. But in terms of a story that is, can be very American, and that Harvey can tell, it's very Hollywood. And I guess that's all I have to say about that.
No. I've actually got a couple. My honourable mention is James Blanton, Ryan Crawford story, where they went 1-2 at Dead Cow Gully in April, and then they formed a friendship at Clint Eastwood in August when they did their 60 yards and finished together, with James qualifying for Biggs. And then at Biggs, Ryan's race unfortunately finished a lot earlier than everyone expected, but he stepped in and crewed for James for at least 20-odd hours, I think, and he helped James make the 72 yards. So I thought that was a really cool story. And my other one is, I call it the always staying positive story, and it's Tim Kacprzak. After completing 55 yards at the Masters, you were teetering on the edge of the at-large list, and as time went on, things didn't appear to be moving in your favour. But you kept a positive attitude, and it was pretty much, if I make it to Bigs, I'll make sure I'm as fit as possible. And in September, you ran over 700 kilometres, over 62 hours, and almost 10,000 metres of elevation. And that's before you knew you were running at Bigs. And then you'd found out you'd made Bigs with only a few weeks to spare, and you went out and ran a PB. So that was my story of the year as well.
Oh, thank you. That's very generous of you to say.
Runners to watch in 2024.
Oh, that's a harder one. I might have a bit of
my one.
I might have a bit of a weird one, actually. I've got Jonathan Knoll, American runner. I didn't know who Jonathan was before Biggs. Biggs was his first race since Biggs in 2022. He actually literally didn't run an ultra in 2023 at all, and ran 98 hours. And this is his backyard record. 34 hours came first, 62 fourth, 25 hours first, 74 hours third, 98 hours and seventh. So that guy can run. And I think if he was from another country, he'd probably be a bit more famous.
Yeah.
So I don't know what his plans are, if he's got any interest in doing anything else. Obviously, like I said, he didn't run at all in 2023. But he pushed himself really hard. I was there, and when he pulled out,
it was hard to watch. It was hard to watch. It was very hard to watch him do the last almost 10 hours. He was so broken. Like, he was running on an angle, like just to compensate for whatever he had going on. It was insane to watch.
There's nothing to him either. He's like, a stiff wind could blow him over kind of thing. But I just thought that was an awesome run. Interested to see what Ehor does. For those who don't know, Ehor is actually a really good runner. Not in backyards, trail running. He's got quite a good record. Rob Parsons. I think Rob is potentially a 100-yard runner. So whether or not he'll get the chance, I don't know. And Margie at Sat Champs, I think. The way she's been training and just her demeanour this year. I think if she got the team around her, I'd be interested to see how far she can go. I don't think she'll stop at 48, 49, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So, they're the people that I'm sort of interested in watching.
It's funny that, like, you can, if you're a backyard ultra runner, if you do well enough at Bigs, you never have to run another race until
you just go back.
You just keep qualifying every time. Yeah.
It sure makes it easier.
Yeah.
You don't have to follow Phil around the country.
What about you, Tim? Your runners to watch for next year?
I've got a few as well. A few international guys that I ran with at Bigs. I think that they can go a hell of a lot bigger if they tweak a few things. Like, and I think they're similar in that I think they've got like a heap of potential. It's just that things just didn't happen in their favour. Kevin Snyder, I ran with him a lot. He was one of the Belgian runners. Actually, all the Belgian runners were amazing people. Even after the event, like it was an awesome experience at Bigs just to get to know all the international guys. But the Belgians, they were super humble, and they're just amazing athletes. But Kevin was one of the younger guys, and I think he ran 68 or 69 in the end. But like super strong runner. But it was funny, I seen a post that he had, and he, similar to me, he kind of lost his why. But I think that if he can dial that in, I think he's a super strong runner. Like, he's one that's kind of in those 60s and 70s and has that potential to go 100. Henrik, he's one of, I reckon he would have been in the top 10 had he not have had his issues. Like I think he forgot his he changed his shoes and forgot his timing chip or whatever it was. Had he had not had that issue, he was looking so strong. He was on when I was having some issues in the mid 50s. I was talking to him and he's like, look, I'm running 53 on the day loop. He was running 53-minute loops. He goes, just stick to the back of me and, I'll get you through. And I think he's an engineer and he's so like, he knew exactly where to walk, exactly where to run. And then so I'm there behind him and I'm like, oh, thank God I've got Henrik to follow. And there was a guy behind me. I'm like, oh, do you want to go ahead? And he's like, no. And then Henrik's like, oh, does anyone want to go? And then all I heard was this chant, like, no, we're right. And I turn around and there's 10 of us all following Henrik, right? Because we're all in a hole and he's the one digging us out of it. So he was amazing. And I think that if that hadn't happened to him, and he's such a nice guy, and when that happened to him where he was disqualified, I'm like, oh, that's like anyone else. Like, come on, surely not him. But he's definitely one to watch. As for Aussies, I reckon that there's a few. Like I kind of had a few people that have got that ability to go, to that, above 72, and then I think I had a few people that I thought in the 20s that can go 20s, 30s that can go up to that 48, 72 hour mark. You were definitely one of them, Pato. I think that like the amount of work that you've put in over the last year and a half, 2 years is amazing. And it's like I think the same, like if you dial yourself into that one race, I reckon that, and put everything into it, you could easily hit that 2 or 3 day mark for sure. So I had yourself, I had Margie was a big one as well. I think she's like a massive addition to the Australian team, and I think that showing how she backed up a Coast Cozzy just proves that she can go the distance and hit that 3 day mark. Because I think at Sat Champs we're gonna, as an Aussie team, everyone's gonna have to have those people that can go 72 plus. I think Ben might have mentioned once before, like the Japanese guys, they're dialed in. They've got so many guys that can go over 72. It's not funny. So I think that this year will be really cool to watch to see who can do that. I also had I think Ollie, my son, I know it's probably, I'm going to say it because he's my son, but I think that he's got massive potential this year to go, 24 plus. And then, you've got that Kacprzak guy from Poland as well. He's a young guy, 18. These kids are going to start, doing these backyard ultras, and they're going to start showing the older guys up, I reckon, soon, because they've just got, like, they may not hit the mark every single time, but it's just like a young football team. One time they'll beat the top team, and then next week they'll lose to the bottom team. But they'll do a few of them, but they'll hit more often than they miss, I reckon, that as they age. I also think that Camille, Ben's wife, I think that she'll do really well at MVP.
MVP course record. Here we come.
I think that she's got a hell of a lot of potential in actually taking out MVP. One of the guy that crewed for me, Joel, he's going to be there as well. I think that watching those two go at it is going to be really cool, and I think that they've got huge potential. They're the people that are relatively unknown, but I think that will have the potential to go to that 48 hour mark, and on the Aussie scene really make an impact.
And Tim, just on MVP, I can't remember who's the current course record holder for MVP.
There's another Nicholls that's the current record holder. I'm not sure whether they're related, but I reckon that Camille might have Ben on that one.
I hope she does.
Yeah, I hope so too. I think she's got like looking at her training and stuff like that. She's as a runner, she's got it all dialed in, and hopefully, like I think we mentioned, she's just got to make sure that she's got enough ego to want to win it.
Yeah, definitely ego. Too much ego is not a problem she has.
Yeah, MVP is going to be a good race. I've heard there's already 75 people signed up for it.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Your runners to watch, Matt?
Yeah, I'll stick domestically again. You've both mentioned it, but I'll just second or third it. Margie Hadley is the one to watch for me. Considering how great a year she had in 2023, I don't even think we saw almost the best of her. At Birdies, obviously, she didn't get a fair fight. You know, Rob had other things on his mind, being qualified for bids. So I don't know if she fought the best. You know, she had the best chance to test her limit in that race, and then at Hysterical just a couple of months ago now when you were there, Pato. I think it's apparent that she might have been the best runner in the field by some way. So I think 2024, you know, she's already, it all sort of adds up to me. She's already qualified for the SAT Champ, so she's got a whole year to train the right way and get it right. I know she's scheduled to come to Victoria for a race in June. She may take that seriously. She might be here for a holiday, though I don't know if anyone comes to Gippsland in the middle of winter for a holiday. But in terms of she's qualified for the SAT Champs, it's on her home turf. She's got everything going for her right now. She's already got she's the current Australian record holder at 48 or 47. I don't want to insult her. Is it 48?
I think it's 47.
Okay, 47. Well, my prediction is that she completely leapfrogs the 50s, and I'm not going to put a roof on the 60s either. From what I saw from the women around the world in 2023, I've got no doubt that Margie could be easily one of the best backyard racers in the world, male or female. Absolutely. And just a real local one to watch. At GV this year, you know them, Pato. The guys that came third and fourth, Paul Dixon and Brandon Lee, they ran their first backyard ultra at GV, last man standing. And although they didn't win the race, they completed 32 laps in just about the easiest and most comfortable fashion that I've ever seen anyone run. And they pulled out because they had no experience whatsoever. They'd never really had any business in backyard ultras before. And I think if they go on the learning curve that backyard runners go on, they've both got really big futures if they stick at backyard racing, because from what I saw, although they didn't get a super result, they've got oodles of potential in the domestic circuit. I can only go on with what I saw, and I only did one race this year. So they're the guys that I noticed on.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, they're very good runners. I've just got one runner to watch in 2024, and I've got Dan Carmack, a seriously good runner. He's running 2 backyard ultras, with his best being at Hurdy's with 51. That keeps him just on the very edge. He's currently qualified for the Australian team, but I'm pretty sure we'll need higher than that to qualify this year. And he wants to make it, and he's coming to Murray to try and qualify.
Wow.
And I think he's more than capable of running a huge PB in 2024, be it at Murray or elsewhere. So, Dan Carmack for me.
Super nice guy too.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
He's another guy who's he's still in his 20s, so he's got a huge future.
Yeah, he's an impressive runner because he's a very fast marathon runner too.
Yeah.
So he has that potential to run those quicker loops, get sleep. They're probably the most dangerous backyard ultra runners, guys that can run fast loops, because they can get the rest, they can get the sleep and everything in, and then they can just take it easy during the day when they're not. That's why Phil's so good at what he does, because he's so quick. But yeah, I mean, that's not to say that the slower guys don't win, but yeah, he's definitely Dan's a super nice guy, and because I ran with him at Hurdy's, and he was taking it up to Phil for a long time. But yeah, no, he's a good guy.
Yeah, he just loves. He lives and breathes running, from what I can tell. He had a road trip over to Dead Cow Gully, and he helped crew Johan over at Dead Cow Gully, and then so he lives and breathes running, that's for sure.
Dan and 3 other guys hold the FKT on the Hastings Trail too, which is 1,200 kilometres in 12 days. So,
right. Yeah.
He
can do it. He can do everything, can't he? He won the Wings for Life. He came first in the Wings for Life in Australia earlier this year as well. It came like in the top 50 or 60 in the world too. So
right. Wow.
Yeah, he can do everything. 2024 predictions. What have you got, Ben?
I think if you went back a year or 2 years, I don't think anyone could have predicted what's happened in the last every 12 months. It just seems to be going insane. So, but I think the Satellite Championships will finish roughly with Japan on top this year. Tim touched on it. They seem to have, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, they seem to have their domestic backyard calendar geared around qualifying the best people for the Satellite Championships. I think they have 7 backyards there. 6 of them are silver races, and they're all run by the same group. And I think Pato, I can't remember off the top of my head, but what's the bottom of their qualifying list at the moment is some ridiculous number already.
Yeah, it was either 67 or 68.
Yes, you've got to run 70 hours.
Yeah.
Basically, to qualify for the Japanese team. That's just amazing.
Yeah.
They're my pick for the Sat Champs, and I've got other than that, I've got USA, Australia, and Belgium. So the same 4 teams finishing top 4. I would love to sort of get us through into a top 3 finish again. That was pretty cool. And I think all 4 of those teams will get into the 90s during the Sat Champs. And my other 2024 prediction is that the world record won't get broken.
Yeah.
So that's about it. And probably Ollie Kacprzak running 24 plus.
Yeah.
So pressure's on Ollie. And I better mention my own son who's running MVP in February as well. So he's aiming for 6-ish. So I reckon he'll get 7. So if you're listening, Dane, you've got to put some more effort.
That's awesome. Well, my predictions, I guess, I'm very similar to you, Ben. I think that the Japanese runners have, I don't know, they've got like this stoic attitude towards their running. When they're running, they're so super dialed in and focused, and then when they're not running, they're taking weird selfies with lads in front of the finish line. Like it's like, I mean, it's night and day. Their personalities are amazing, but when they're running, man, they are so dialed in and focused. Like
they were business, weren't they?
Oh, they were all business. So I think, I think that the Japanese are going to be out of all the teams. I think that they possibly on paper. And just the way their attitude is towards backyard ultra and stuff, I think that they're ones to watch. I think the Belgians, they're gonna, they've already got a super solid team of runners. Frank, who I think you had on the podcast, if you could have been there, those last few loops of his, when everyone was chanting Frank the Tank, that guy, he was, I don't know how he even made, he was falling over the line, and he was falling over the line for the last 12 hours. But everyone was chanting Frank the Tank, and then as soon as he heard that chant, he'd get his arms up, and everyone would get louder, and then he'd just keep going. He'd be like, he was addicted to the chant, so he just did another loop so everyone would chant again. but yeah, I think the Belgians are going to be super strong. The Americans they're always going to be super strong. But John Knoll, like it was crazy watching him. And I think the Aussie team. I think there'll be some dark horses pop up this year. I think now that everyone knows that it's possible to go, really deep into the 70s and the 80s, and having a look at we've got a real diverse range of athletes up the top. You have guys like Phil, who's like super quick and pumps out his laps really quickly and stuff like that. And then you've got Rob, who he just chugs along and just he's all business and he just gets it done. And I think up and coming runners looking at runners like that will get a heap of confidence, knowing that they don't have to be they don't have to be as fast as Phil to get in the 80s and 90s. They can be like Rob and then just go out there and then just have a good plan in place to whether it's a run, walk, or whatever it may be. So I think that we're lucky in Australia that we've got that, and I think that the world record will be broken. And I don't know whether Australia will go I don't know whether Australia will win, but I reckon Australia will be the only country that will break the world record. So that's my prediction.
Awesome. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think you've touched on some of the popular ones. I'll touch on the Margie Hadley again. Like I think I said just only a few minutes ago that she'll easily run into the 60s at the SAP champs, but now that I've thought about it for another few minutes, 74 isn't that much to not much of a bow to draw. So my prediction is not only does Margie obviously break the Australian female course record, I think she'll be the last female standing in the world at the satellite champs, and she just might go and get the women's best ever result of 74 plus.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I think she's, especially because she's very close to she's close to the strong runners from WA, being in her backyard as well. She's going to have all the support in the world she'll ever want. I think it's set up for a really big result for her. So that's my prediction.
Yeah. I've got Australia will finish number 1 spot at the SAP champs. Just because I'm Australian.
Big call.
I've also got, I reckon Miriam Wernet's going to be a corker. I've got Miriam Wernet will go for over 72 hours. I reckon. I reckon
not.
And just for fun, I reckon one of the Search for Hurt contestants will make it to 48 hours at Miriam Wernet.
That's a big call.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought
That's awesome, though.
Yeah. It'll be fun. It'll be really fun. That race with those Search for Hurt runners there running as well. It'll be awesome.
Well, we don't know who those runners are, who those athletes are yet. So if you get Tom Dade, if Tom Dade makes it onto the team, or if Aaron Young, I think he's looking at potentially being on there as well. They can definitely hit 48.
Definitely then, yeah.
Has Tom Dade gone for it? Has he?
I think he might have.
Yeah,
he has. Yeah.
Yeah. No, he'd be amazing.
Oh yeah, he would. I think that's a good call, Pat. I think Miriam Wernet's going to, with no backyard masters and whatnot this year, I think it's going to be a race to watch for sure.
Yeah, and because the road at night time will help. It's not going to all be on paddock.
Oh, that's going to help so much.
Yeah,
that paddock is hard work.
Biggs was an eye opener in that the day course was really, really tough. The night course was a lot easier, but it was an eye opener that you can go big. It doesn't matter what the course really looks like. I was getting 160, 170 at points elevation during the day loop at Biggs. and everyone was still managing to get in. You kind of looked forward to the day loop. So I think with Miriam Wernett being similar, I know it's paddock grass, depends on how they mow it and how it's, how it is. But I definitely think that, you can go pretty big on most courses. I don't think that's the overriding factor. And I think the bigs prove that.
Yeah. And, I know of some other runners, like there's like Dan Carmack's coming over for it. Sean Lyons from Queensland, he's done 37 at Dead Cow Gully. He's coming down for it. So there's probably others who, Ross McLean's going to be there. There's a lot of runners who can go deep who are fired.
Well, I think Ross McPhee might be doing it as well.
Yeah,
He's won it the last couple of times. He loves the day course.
Yeah. I think a really good thing about Miriam Wernett this year, apart from that, we had the SAT champs there last year, but it's being Victorian, obviously, it really is shaping up to be the Victorian Championship race, which is a really big thing for Miriam Wernett and the race directors, and that's what they always really wanted it to be, being a really good, illustration and showpiece for what Big's backyard is, and they've really tried to keep it to its original roots and its traditional philosophies of being a tougher type course in a remote area with relatively small fields, and it's really trying to keep to those original sort of philosophies.
Yeah, you did right. Like it's and it really warrants that silver ticket as well. I reckon it's, and I think that's what you want with your silver ticket events. You want them to be hard, you want them to be tough, and you want the best runners going to those silver ticket events. And not until even more so, I reckon it's going to be this year, we're all going to kind of realize how this whole silver ticket and bronze ticket stuff plays out. Because previously it was all like, people were entering, they didn't even know what a silver ticket was. Whereas now they're like hen's teeth. Like people are kind of trying to gear their whole year around chasing these silver tickets around the country because they know how important they are. Like one's gone off already, and then that's it. So now you've got, I think we've only got 4 left, and they're all super hard events. So and everyone's going to kind of instead of having to chase the really good runners around the country to try and post a big total, now you're going to be looking at those events because not only are you going to be raining against the best that Australia has.
Has anyone else lost him?
Yeah, we've lost him. He was just saying something really good too.
Oh, it was going to be profound.
Can you hear us, Tim?
Back
okay.
really
no, he's back.
I'm back. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know where I cut off. Sorry, I apologise.
Just go back to Frank the Tank, start from there.
So what I was saying, you're pretty much like the silver tickets are going to be the hardest things to get. So everyone's going to be chasing them, and you're going to have the best athletes there. So I mean, that's
The funny story on that when we got back from Bigs, and I said to Camille, I'm not sure my 56 is going to be enough to get me into the SAT Champs team. I want to chase the ticket at Miriam Wernett. She was like, yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I sort of foolishly said, I think I'll only have to beat Ross McPhee. He'll be like, he'll come back for sure and he'll be tough to beat. But I said, I reckon we can get it done in less than 50. And then next minute, it's like the who's who pseudo-Australian championships. And then there's sort of a few comments have been like, oh, you might not get that silver ticket quite so easily anymore. And but that's not the point. I entered to qualify for the SAT chance. So if there's people there that can get me into the 60s, then that's all I need. So, yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a high quality race. It's going to be great.
So we're all doing Miriam Wernett. What else have you locked in for the year? Ben?
Oh, me. Miriam Werner, and then I've got Camille and Dane, wife and son, running at MVP, so I'm crewing that. And then, I've actually got my calendar in front of me. Down Under, again, this is my third and final attempt at trying to finish Down Under 135. It's in April. We have a local ultra here in southwest Victoria. It's only like 20 minutes from my house in May. It's a 216k relay run. So I want to do that just because it's local and support it. Camille's running Unbreakable, which is the Barclay Marathon sort of based race here in Victoria. So I'm entering that and I'm running it with her. And if she stops before me, I'll go on for as long as I can afterwards. Should be counting these. Planning to do the Yangs probably 100 Ks in July.
It's sounding more and more like Pato every day.
I know. Now that I'm reading it out,
Only it doesn't end in backyard ultra. Backyard ultra.
We talked about going back up to Queensland to do the Unreasonable East, but that might be Camille doing the 100 miler. So I'd be crewing that one because she's already done the Irrational South, so she only needs that and Delirious to get her trilogy, which is the three from that series. There's a race in Victoria called the Surf Coast Century, which is a 100-kilometre trail race. It's quite a fast track, and I've had 2 cracks at it and never managed to pull off a good race. So I want to do that. And then we've got the Sat Chance in October. And then I might have 2 months off.
I saw you posted something about that local relay race near you, and I thought, oh, that looks interesting. I looked at the website and the photo gallery they've got. Pretty much every photo they've posted is a close-up photo of a snake. So
yeah, we have a lot of snakes here.
Yeah.
But they're good snakes. I've seen a lot of snakes. Like Camille and I have been out running and seen like 8 snakes in 8 Ks.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just run past them.
Yeah. They're not I mean, I see them every now and then, but I alter my route during snake season, so I don't see them as much. But when I do, they pretty much ignore you unless
yeah, they do, yeah. On that, I should point out that race, the Kangaroo Base Camp, it's called. I didn't see any snakes there last year.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah. No, it looks like a lot of fun. Like I was thinking, yeah, this looks pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a lot of fun. It's I'm not affiliated with it. I'm not plugging it at all, but it's based at like a school camp. So like your dormitory accommodation comes in the price. There's a big fireplace and you get use of the kitchen, and like everybody's sitting around at tables drinking and eating, waiting for their runner to come in and grabbing the baton and taking a turn. It's a really cool social concept. So,
yeah, it sounds good. Tim, what races have you got penciled in?
So I'm hoping not to have to try and qualify for Sat Champs like I did for Bigs and have to do a backyard ultra every couple of months. But I'm hoping that it's just one and done, and that'll be at Moonwernit. So I'll be there. So I'll do that one. Then I wasn't going to go back and do Down Under after I did it last year. But something in me's like, oh, you know what? I really enjoyed that event. It was pretty cool. The community around it and the race directors and stuff like that, they put on an awesome event. So I'd like to go back and do that. I'm not entirely sure. I'd like to go and do Dead Cow, but I don't know whether the timing's going to be right with the other events. But that would be a cool one to do. But aside from that, I haven't there's nothing really locked in. I've kind of stopped kind of locking in 4 or 5 events for the year and then because it's just it depends on what's happening. But yeah, definitely. So you got Mirror Down Under. I wouldn't. I'm going to be following Ben and Camille around. Unbreakables. I'd like to go back there and prove that the first time that I'd finished it wasn't a fluke. And then Sat Champs is like the big one. I've kind of cleared a lot of stuff before Sat Champs. Try and put in a big training block with the course being a lot flatter for Sat Champs than what it was at Bigs and the previous Sat Champs. I think it's going to take something a little bit different in training to be ready for that. I do tend to run a moderate amount of hills, and I know that the surface at the Hurdy's venue for Sat Champs is going to be a little bit. It's a little bit harder underfoot, so I'd like to spend a couple months training for that properly. But yeah, definitely that's Sat Champs will be that A race for me next year. But I really enjoy the point-to-point events. They kind of like they're not as mentally fatiguing as a backyard ultra. So, and I think that they're important, and they really help you out as an ultra runner and also as a backyard runner. If you can do some good point-to-point events and then go into that, it kind of really makes you appreciate how hard you work and stuff. So,
yeah. What about you, Matt? What have you got?
Yeah, short and sweet. I've only got 2 races sort of locked in that I'm committed to for 2024. The first one obviously is Mirror. That's definitely my A race for the year. As I said, I think earlier, it'll be my first chance in really 2 years to really give a backyard a red hot crack. To be honest, I don't expect to win the thing, but I don't need to, because I know that the quality of runners that are going to show up at that event, I'm going to really be able to test my limit and sort of find out exactly where I am. And either way, no matter the result, if I find my limit when I'm fit and as fit as I think I am, it's going to be a huge success. So either way, Mirror, it's going to be a fantastic event for me, because I'm really going to get to see what 2 years worth of dedication and devotion to backyard racing gets me. And the second one is in June, and this is a shameless plug. I'm lucky enough to be an ambassador for a new backyard ultra starting in Victoria. It's called Wild Dog Backyard Ultra. It's by Ultra Series, so it's the events that Sean Kessler runs, and it's a brand new event in Vic starting up, so it'll be the 4th backyard ultra in Vic. So if anyone's looking for a brand new event, jump on board Wild Dog Backyard Ultra, and that's in June, and that should be a hoot as well. We've already got a good list of entrants that are turning up. As I said, Margie's turning up; she's also an ambassador for the event. Pato is as well.
Yep.
So that should be just a whole lot of fun, to be honest. And I'm really excited for that one as well, because it's an actual local event for me. It's no more than 30 minutes from my doorstep. So it's a really convenient race as well. And that's what I've got locked in. So up to you, Pato.
Yeah, well, I'm doing MVP. Then I'll be doing Mirror and Wild Dog as well. And then I'm just going to figure out what I'm doing depending on what happens at those races. But there's a lot of races that I've got my eye on, like even like that 6-day race in Adelaide. I'd like to give that a shot. Look, I mean, I'll just wait and see. But the Sat Champs is my main goal. So depending on these other races will kind of guide my direction, I guess you could say.
It's a good way to be, I reckon. Like you always kind of, when me and Ollie kind of spitball ideas about events, we're kind of not looking too far ahead. It is good to have that goal at Sat Champs, but if you start putting a heap of races in, then you kind of tend to, I find by training you don't get the best out of your training because you're too busy looking too far forward, and then you hit an event and you're like, oh, I don't really want to. You're like, in an event you might be pushing, and then you're like, I don't want to push too hard because I've got this other event in 5 or 6 weeks. Whereas if you've only got that event, that's it. It's like, you give it everything you've got, and then you worry about the consequences later. Like Ben's a perfect example of that. Hit bigs, and 8 weeks later or 6 weeks later, he's still struggling. But I bet he wouldn't take that back.
No,
he put it all on the line, and it was 50 loops on a dodgy knee. It was incredible. So.
Yeah, it's like I was signed up to do the 24-hour Coburg track race, and when that got cancelled, I just thought, well, that means I'll have just forever to recover from Murray-Wernet. So I won't be running at Murray-Wernet and thinking, I've got the Coburg 24 in a few weeks. So there won't be any excuses at Murray-Wernet, that's for sure.
Oh, there'll be plenty of us to drag you out of that chair.
Yeah.
You're probably going to regret coming.
Hey, I've got one question for you guys. It's totally non-running related, but seeing all three of you live in regional Victoria, and I'm really into this kind of stuff. I don't know if any of you are, but there's lots of talk about big cat sightings. Have any of you seen anything?
No, that's a big sort of a local legend where I live. The group that helped to put on that local ultra that we were just talking about are called the Princetown Institute of Sport, which is, the acronym is PIS, which they put on all their stuff. They're very funny people, and their logo is the Princetown Panther. So, but no, I think there's too many snakes here for a panther to last too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only panther that I've seen is driving down to the Otways. I can't remember what little town it is. It's just past Forest. As you're driving down on the right-hand side, there's like a lagoon with a little island in the middle, and someone has put up a Black Panther silhouette out of something, and they've painted it black. And I remember the first time driving past there and seeing it, I'm like, oh my God, there's a panther over there. And then, so I did a U-turn and I drove the family back up, and because they didn't believe me, I'm like, oh no, it's just someone's put that there. That's the only panther I've ever seen that's local. But no, I haven't seen any.
What about you, Matt? I can tell you've seen something, haven't you?
No. There's plenty of stories in Gippsland, but I don't know how much of it is credible. So I'm quite, I'm not a huge believer, but yeah, there got to be some out there, eh?
Yeah. Well, they catch big feral cats, like hunters. They'll catch big feral cats and hang them up, and they're like 2 meters long. So it wouldn't be hard to mistake one.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, there's some big cats.
Yeah.
Hey, well, guys, thanks heaps for coming on. I've really enjoyed the chat, and I reckon this year's been one of the best running years ever, and I reckon next year will be even better.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Thanks again, guys. Merry Christmas, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Merry
Christmas, gents.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
If you've enjoyed this podcast, it would be awesome if you could share, comment, like, subscribe, all of that. If you've got any feedback, shoot me a message. Hope you have a great day. See ya.